running a cinematic gauntlet like this, I should have been on it much sooner. Because what do you even call this, right? Because typically it's summer of something. Like I do summer of Spider-Man, I did summer of Superman last year, summer of Supergirl this year as well. Doomsday comes out in December though, so what is it, like winter, or like I guess the fall, winter of doom, as it were, even though we're starting in August. There's a lot of movies to catch up on. So here we go. In honor of Avengers Doomsday, that is right, I am talking about every single MCU movie leading into Avengers Doomsday, starting with the impeccable, the infamous, the only Iron Man. I'll tell you the most depressing thing about starting on this and making me realize is, like, since society is killing physical media as fast as they possibly can, it's gonna be weird not being able to complete the MCU with all the DVDs, right? Like, I already don't own all of them, but now it's like, if you want to collect them all in physical media, you can't, because we stopped doing physical media around the time Phase 5 happened. Crazy. It's a weird thought to have. Kind of a sad thought to have, but I don't want to be happy right now. Let's talk about Iron Man. Iron Man 1 is the start, the pinnacle. Where do you even begin with Iron Man? What hasn't been said about Iron Man 1? I think I'm just going to spiel about it and let it be that. Because I'll be honest, everything I say has been said before. There's nothing new you can say about Iron Man 1. But that being said, it's still worth every bit of praise it gets. This movie was lightning in a bottle. It is such a special thing because nobody was rooting for this. Almost like Avengers Doomsday in a way, nobody was rooting for this. Some people were, but like it was one of those things where like it was a gamble. Like Iron Man 1 does not get enough credit, or at least the start of the MCU, I don't think gets enough credit for how much of a patchy, rough start it actually got. They were true underdogs in this time. Marvel was almost in bankruptcy. They were struggling. They had a couple of bombs already. The comic book scene at the time was not looking good. It was actually very bleak if you were a comic book fan at the time, I imagine. I was only 8 when this was happening, so I didn't process all of that, but adults who talk about it fascinate me because they talk about how desperate Marvel was. Because Marvel was at a point, it was like you had a couple of bombs. Spider-Man 3 did not do well from the Sony side of things. From the Fox side of things, X-Men wasn't doing so hot because Last Stand was just terrible. And they needed a win. Marvel itself needed a win. So Marvel Studios at the time, they were owned by Paramount, decided, hey, let's pull out Iron Man. There's definitely more in-depth stories on the on-set stuff about it. It is a fascinating thing to look into Iron Man 1 production-wise because so much was going wrong, yet they made it work because they were dedicated, they were driven, but they cared about what was character-driven. They kept it about the characters. Jon Favreau, Robert Downey Jr., the crew at hand, they all did such a good job at recognizing that, hey, we have a gamble here, we have a lot we're working with, and now we're in a writer's strike. We can't even write the script. If you look at interviews with Jeff Bridges, it's fascinating. Like, these people didn't have a script a lot of the time on set. They had to figure out how to make the scenes flow and ebb and weave within a narrative without having a writing down. Because of the strike, you're legally not allowed to write during strikes. So they were just kind of in a no-end scenario where they're like, all right, we got to make this work the best we can. And my God, the actors pull it off. And I think that's what's great about Iron Man 1 is the premise is so simple. They could get away with playing risk like that, even though it was on a big budget set in a way. I say big budget. It's funny compared to now. Back then, it's not big budget, but for when it came out, it's pretty big budget. But what I like is that they were able to get around any pitfalls because they knew these characters that they were trying to build so well, and that's what got them through it. And also that just emotional authenticity. No matter how bad a scene was written, or if a scene wasn't written, the actors brought it, and that shows in Robert Downey Jr., this dude, lightning in a bottle. Like, he was struggling. Robert Downey Jr. was not making it. He was at a point in life where his career was pretty much done. It was a gamble to do Robert Downey Jr. for this. There were many other roles and castings in mind for Iron Man. Even Tom Cruise at a point. If you didn't know, Tom Cruise was almost set to play Iron Man. What a different performance that would have been. Thankfully, though, they decided to take a gamble. They took a gamble in RDJ, and it delivered because Robert Downey Jr. owns every bit of Tony Stark's screen time in this movie, and it is all about him. There's such an internal character study of Tony Stark and his regret. That's really what the whole MCU is as a whole, looking back retrospectively, but this first chapter is such a good starting point of that, I think. Iron Man has balls, right? It has the balls to start with a character who is an asshole. Tony Stark is not a good person at the start of this movie. He's a straight up dickhead. He's douchebag to the people around him. He has money. He owns the world. He clearly feels like he's on top of the world, even if he doesn't want to admit it. He sees himself as a warmonger. He develops weapons. He proudly presents them, flexes on it, poses on the pictures of it, loves the fact that he's making all this wealth. He comes from nepotism. It's a fascinating thing with him, though, because Robert Downey Jr. is so good at nailing that line between likable character, but also someone you want to grow because he's annoying the shit out of you. And you don't really pick up on that until you get older. Because Because as a kid, you're just like, oh, cool, man, he has so much swag, he's got sunglasses, he's awesome. As an adult, you're like, wow, this guy has got a lot of layers that he's hiding to seem cool. And it's so fun watching that character be unpacked over the years. Because Iron Man 1 really nails that. I love the first act of this movie because you spend time with Tony Stark just being a douchebag, and it really builds his character out. Same thing with Rhodey. Terrence Howard's performance as Rhodey, I think, is so underrated. I honestly prefer him over Don Cheadle. No hate to Don Cheadle. That's one of my hot takes. Is like, I do think Terrence Howard is fantastic as Rhodey in this, and they really buy their chemistry and history. To this day, it feels like Iron Man 1, you feel the most history between Rhodey and Tony as friends. And that comes to the tight comedic value of this. These two just bounce off each other so well. You get the camaraderie, but you also get their tension because they're such different personalities. Rhodey being the straight-head military guy, Tony being the wild card. But you have that moment on the plane before the whole presentation with the weapons where Tony's like, come on, we're just gonna drink a little bit, have a little fun. And Rhodey's like, I don't want any. And then it cuts and immediately they are fucked up and they're just having a good time on the plane and he's like spilling his feelings out to him. Stuff like that makes these characters feel so alive, so lived in and breathable, and so different compared to the rest of Marvel Studios. So much fun about Iron Man 1 is that a lot of the best scenes are just comedic dialogue scenes, or just normal dialogue scenes. There's so many great moments of heart in this movie that are dedicated to just developing the characters out. Tony Stark in this movie, you spend a lot of time with him in that cave, and the stuff in the cave is really where this movie, it's my favorite part of the movie. You know, Tony Stark gets captured, he's been developing weapons, and now he gets first-hand sight of what these weapons have been doing to people. He sees young Americans killed, like he says, by the weapons he very much created, and you see him go through that humbling process with Jensen, another unsung hero in this movie. Jensen is excellent because you get those moments of internal dialogue between them where you really feel like Jensen created the idea of Iron Man for Tony Stark. Like, he motivated him to be the better version of himself. And something I found so endearing about Jensen when you watch it back is that I like the idea that Jensen and Tony never talked about Jensen when he got back. And it's really fascinating. And as a kid, I always wondered, like, why not talk about Jensen enough? But as an adult, it's kind of beautiful because you realize that Tony and Jensen, that's them. That's Tony's bond. That's the one thing he took from the cave that he can keep with him internally for his whole life, knowing that that's what changed him. And I find it endearing that he doesn't reveal who Jensen was. We find out that Jensen actually is going to see his family. He didn't have it anymore, but still, like, the fact that Tony respected his image, his legacy enough, he's like, I'm not going to say anything. That's something between me and him. I think it's beautiful. There's something really important about that because Tony is a type of character to not always let his feelings out, not to always emote. So certain things that he keeps hidden in reserve, I find fascinating. It really highlights what kind of character Tony is. You can see so much of his growth internally. As a three-dimensional character, he hides it. He doesn't want to show that he's grown, and that slowly gets shedded off and unveiled as the MCU progresses. You see his character grow from the trauma, from the PTSD, all of it. Not to mention practicality. Dude, that stuff in the cave when they are trapped and they gotta build the suits, you really feel the tension. It's almost like a great Iron Man short film in and of itself because you're really rooting for this guy to get out, not only because you want him to survive because you like RDJ, but because you're like, he has a chance to grow. He has a chance to be a good person. And they really climb the tension in that cave, man. You feel like Tony Stark is on the lower end. He does not have the upper hand. He uses nothing but his brain and his smarts to escape. Because it's not the suits that make Iron Man Iron Man. It's his brains. It's his operations. It's how he thinks. That's what makes him special. Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off and what are you? Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. But it goes deeper than that. We just don't see it yet. Not to mention the filmmaking, dude. It's out of this world. It's practical. It feels real. There's CGI in this movie, but it's very much used sparingly, only when it's needed to. And there's a beautiful blend of practical and CG, creating such a lived-in world that all the effects in this movie still hold up to this day. Every single one of them. With the perfect three-act structure that it portrays. After he gets out of the cave, he gets home, and then we spend so much time just growing with Tony and him developing his relationship with Pepper, who feels so authentic. I love their back and forth because they do feel like co-workers who work together for a while. Pepper starts to kind of catch feelings for Tony, but it feels so authentic and realistic because they work together. They explore it in a way that feels so natural. They're afraid to get together. They're afraid to kind of feed into those nicer thoughts they have about each other. And when they do, they're resentful for it, or at least they're afraid to indulge further. And it feels so realistic for these characters. I love that there's no actual first kiss. Like, there's a moment where they almost do, but we're letting it build. We're letting it simmer. It's good tension. It's good romantic tension. Pepper and Tony are one of those relationships, as I get older, I appreciate more. As a kid, it's like, it's there. But as an adult, you're like, this is so realistic and beautiful for them to come together. And here it's totally buyable. You see why they're having this conflict of getting together and why they work together. It's not professional, but there's definitely something there. I always love that line at the end. It's one of those moments I wonder if the scriptwriters remembered this, because Tony leaves, doesn't bring her back the drink. even though he goes down to the bar to buy it. And later on in the movie, she's like, oh, you remember when you almost kissed me, but then you left me at the bar? Didn't give me my drink. It's funny, like at first it seems like something that you just forget about, but then the movie remembers, calls back to it. Very clever writing. But Pepper's a great foil in this because she serves as the person that Tony is the most vulnerable with. You can tell this is the person Tony doesn't mind confiding in. I love that scene where he's repairing his arc reactor and he allows Pepper to come in and do the change of him. Because not only is it a funny scene, but it illustrates something beautiful. The illustration that Tony, I don't think, would feel comfortable with anyone else doing that kind of operation on him. Seeing him in this vulnerable state, he's willing to let Pepper see that. And even though he's joking through it, Pepper's the only person he would let in that room to do that. Tony's the type of person to not admit fear, but when he's talking to Pepper, when he has that line of like, you watch me reap the benefits of destruction and now you're gonna walk away when I'm trying to do the right thing. He just knows in his heart, his soul, that it's right. It's so viable because finally we get a moment where Tony just admits his guilt, lays it out, all out on the table. It's the best scene. And Pepper listens. Pepper takes it in and is like, I do get it. And it is such a human moment. And it's a human moment that will always stick with me. Something the character Tony Stark does really well, at least what RDJ brings to Tony Stark, is how he carries his guilt and regret throughout the entire franchise, where sometimes he's afraid to admit it, but you can tell it's always lingering in the back of his mind, even when he doesn't want to talk about it. But I like that it is handled realistically in character writing. When there's a problem to solve, you don't just lament on your problems the whole time. You gotta lock in, solve your issue, then go back to your emotions. Tony Stark, as a character, does that a lot through the universe, including this movie, and it's really fascinating. It makes him so three-dimensional. And speaking of three-dimensionality, every character in this is such. Obadiah Stane. Jeff Bridges owns this role, by the way. He's so in his element here, and you're so used to seeing him as the dude. But when he becomes this character, Obadiah, he really transforms. Like, you do buy him as the mentor on Tony Stark's right shoulder, trying to be the good guy, trying to be his mentor, his friend in a way, because he knew his dad, but you can tell him the back of his mind he's actually doing something nefarious. Jeff Bridges really carries that, but when he goes full villain, he owns it, but he never goes camp to the point to where he's not able to be taken seriously. I appreciate that. It's ended really well. Like, I like that when Obadiah goes full villain, he's actually very intimidating. Like, Jeff Bridges does a good job at selling the intimidation. That scene between him and Pepper and the computer is scary. Like, this dude has all the power and the dynamic, and Pepper's just there vulnerable. I'm glad she gets out and Coulson's there, luckily, but it's a scary scene. It's impressive, too, because this isn't even like a galactic villain. Like, Jeff Bridges just has that much presence. He really owned the role. Even without a script, it's fucking impressive, dude. And I keep going back to that. It's the feats that Iron Man's able to pull off under the crippling weight it was really trying to operate under. That's so impressive. Did you know the ending of Iron Man, him saying, I am Iron Man, that was improvised? That was not planned. Please fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that's an improv line. Like that whole thing that changed the MCU fundamentally of what it is was not planned. We give Marvel too much credit for having a plan. It's really one of the things I do think about every time I think about Iron Man. I think about the fact that this generation, or at least coming up, like, you gotta understand, Marvel did not always have it together. They were underdogs at a time. They were the ones that had to prove themselves. Iron Man is a case in point of that. I think nowadays, if you look back at Iron Man without any of the knowledge of that, it can just come across like a chapter 1 in something. But it's so much deeper than that. You wouldn't have half the stuff you enjoy in terms of comic book cinema if Iron Man hadn't happened. That's just a fact. Just like you wouldn't have Iron Man unless Sam Raimi's Spider-Man had happened, or success like that. Like these successes bounce off each other. They create a ripple effect, and it's one that we don't always tend to appreciate until we look back on it. That's something Iron Man 1 is a case and example of. Iron Man 1 is brilliant because it's a character piece. It's focused, it's intimate, it's action-packed, it's practical, it's tactile, it's everything you want in a character study packaged into a perfect little runtime. That's the one thing about this movie, man. The pacing is pitch perfect. Every act has a beginning, middle, and end, segueing smoothly into the next one. Act 1 being this great short film of a rich guy creating weapons, gets trapped in a cave, has to escape, uses his brain and his power, forms a relationship in that little 30-minute short film of escaping and becoming a new person from it. Act 2 being a great short film in and of itself of a guy coming home from trauma, learning about his new home and how it's developed since he's been gone, actually seeing the skeletons in the closet of what he's created. Act 3 being a conflict between a friend, a mentor, and a mentee who grew up together. Act 3 being Tony Stark reconciling with the darker side of himself, Obadiah Stane being the manifestation of the warmongering side of his mentality and how he has to come to grips with that to be better. It's fucking brilliant. It's Iron Man, dude. I get chills thinking about it. I will never forget when going to Blockbuster, looking at the shelves and just seeing a little movie on there called Iron Man. To bring it back, it's like when I was 8, I will never forget going to Blockbuster, looking at the movies, looking for some Spider-Man, looking for something to play, coming across this little box. I see it on there. It's Iron Man. I'm like, what's Iron Man? I will never forget going home, popping that thing in with my parents, watching Iron Man on DVD. My life was changed. This movie got dark too. There are moments where I remember there's a scene, it's in the cave when they're about to burn Jensen on the face. I remember being 8 watching that with my parents. It was the first time in a comic book movie. My mom actually put her hands over my eyes like, you can't watch this scene, honey. Stop looking. That was the first time I saw a comic book movie affect someone like that was older than me, and that was something that stuck with me. I miss when Marvel could have that grit to it. And they're getting it back. Iron Man has that grit to it too. Like, this movie's incredible. Iron Man changed my life for the better. Iron Man has done so much for the MCU and for Marvel as a whole for the better. This movie deserves all the praise it can get, and I will never stop praising it. It's only chapter 1 in this ensemble of cinema. That is the MCU. But man, is it a special chapter. Man, is it influential. Man, do I love it. Iron Man is incredible. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, not just one of my favorite comic book movies. Oh, also, the soundtrack, awesome. Admittedly, they did not find Iron Man's theme quite yet. I do love the music in this movie. It's epic, but I love me some of that Iron Man 3 theme, and we'll get into that eventually. But right now, Iron Man 1, I still fucking love it. Thank you so much for watching Scatterbrain Reviews. Leave a like, leave a comment. Come talk about movies with us. Come talk about stories with us. The winter of doom approaches. I'll see you next time.